The Patriots have decided to spend big money here in the offseason. I'm going to tell you why this is not as uncommon as you guys think. All that coming up in just a minute. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Jay here with Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. Today, I want to talk about the New England Patriots and the way that they're spending money, making it rain on everybody. And let's talk about some of those picks and why I feel like those pickups are a bigger deal than some are making. And at the same time, not that patriotistic. The NFL, the legal tampering time has just passed, which was in... Monday, basically Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday was the start of the league year. And that's when the official signatures can be done, the trades can be executed, all of that stuff. But in theory, all the legal tampering has been going on since right after the Super Bowl. It's when you started seeing it, right around the Super Bowl, and after is when you started seeing all the trades and stuff really start to populate. But anyway, that's when people are, like I said, spending money, but then you start seeing who's really who and who people are who they say they are, because people will show you who they are. You just have to believe them when they show you up front. And some people, when you give them more, and I was listening to Colin Cowherd talk about this, and he mentioned, and which was a great monologue, that, you know, people, when you give them more stuff, you start to really see who they are. Someone that, and this is quoting him, if you give someone more money, if they're a generous person, they're going to be generous. They're going to actually be more generous. You'll see them giving more. If you give someone that's selfish more money, they're going to continue to be selfish. They're going to do more selfish things. And you start to see all of that. I mean, resources, all of that stuff. It shows you people's character. And so now we're talking about, in free agency, the one team I really want to dive into is the New England Patriots. So the Patriots have decided to come into free agency, guns a-blaring, money in rolls, and just throwing it, making it rain. But a lot of the people who are talking about this, they're making it seem like this is uncommon for the Patriots. Now, spending wildly in free agency, I could totally see this being an uncommon thing, especially because this year the Patriots had, as Jimmy mentioned on the last episode, $60-something million in cap space, which is not, if anything, that's not common for the Patriots. They don't usually have that much money available because they usually lock up the players that they really need. And the one place that the Patriots are known for throwing money at, Bill Belichick, namely, is at the defense. He's a defensive guy, so he always spends money, defensive line, linebackers, corners. His defensive nucleus is usually where the money is. And then on the offensive side, it's typically the offensive line and Tom Brady. That was where the money went. Not on skills positions. I'm sorry, in tight ends. He loves tight ends. And so now that after last season with the players that opted out, so he had about 7 players opt out. He had Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, Marcus Cannon, Marquise Lee, Brandon Bolden, or somebody else that also opted out, but I couldn't find the name. And because of that, they lost these key components to their defense and offense that kind of look really lackluster. And even as a lackluster team with less people, they were still able to win 7 games. And so this year, now we have Cam Newton, who has come into play at quarterback, and they brought him back as the first re-signing. They paid him, he's roughly at $14 million, I think is the max he can make this year. That's kind of like an old school Tom Brady contract. I mean, there was points where Tom Brady was up there, the highest paid quarterbacks, and then he tiered down into more of a team-friendly type contract structure to where he can add pieces around him and be successful. And I feel like that's what they're doing now with Cam Newton. They're giving him these additional chances, and now they're able to build around him. And so they went out there and they spent some money. They got 2 wide receivers in Kendrick Bourne as well as Nelson Aguilar, 2 tight ends in Jonnu Smith as well as Hunter Henry, linebacker Matthew Judon, and they actually just went back and re-got Kyle Van Noy, and then Jalen Mills at the corner safety position and Devon Godchaux probably butchered that. He was added D tackle and a few other pieces to their roster. And so everyone has been talking about, oh my God, Belichick is spending money. He's going crazy. This is not like him. And I have to beg to differ on a lot of that. And it's more so it feels like a lot of the details about Belichick people overlook. And like I said, you give somebody more, they're going to show you who they truly are. He betted a lot on the things that he likes. Tight ends. Not number 1 wide receivers. Not even really number 2 wide receivers. But number 3 wide receivers, roughly. Guys that aren't your main attraction, but are productive. And to be honest, a lot of teams, your 3 is usually one of your more reliable receivers, it seems like, for a lot of teams. That's that slot guy, the one that's just shifty and does random things and pop up and make big catches. Julian Edelman's one of those type of guys. You always put 2 big anchors next to him, and then Edelman just does the smart thing and get open. And then he focused on defense. Now, Jalen Mills was probably the most questionable, getting 4 years, $24 million, with only $9 million guaranteed, which isn't that bad. But Mills doesn't have really top end speed. At least that's what the critics say, and that's where the issues lied with him in Philly, where he moved to safety from corner because he can't keep up with some of the top receivers. I think Belichick knows what he's doing. I think Belichick is terrible at drafting, but I think he's really good at adding the right players at the right positions. And the things that Belichick goes after, it feels like it's more schematic setups, players that fit perfectly in his scheme, outside of getting players that are big on big play, big splash. Cam Newton added in there is probably the biggest splash he has in there, but he's not paying him a whole bunch of money. He may have overpaid for Jonnu Smith as well as Hunter Henry, but they're tight ends. That's the thing that his offenses seem to flourish best with tight ends, going back to who he really is when it comes to investing on the offensive side. And Josh McDaniels' offense, I bet you they're going to do great with 2 tight ends and Cam Newton. And then when you add those receivers, most teams do not win Super Bowls with number 1 receivers, with top end receivers. Kansas City was I guess you could say, a anomaly in Tampa Bay last year, the last 2 years. Kansas City more so because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and he's able to make all his receivers look great. And Tyreek Hill is just he has grown into one of the best route runners with speed we probably ever seen. Then you add the Buccaneers last year, but that was Tom Brady with Godwin and Evans and Antonio Brown. It didn't feel like they really had a number 1. They have number 1 receivers. Like, all 3 of those are basically number 1 receivers, but they're not number 1s. You know what I'm saying? They're not Megatron. They're not Julio Jones, where they're the main piece. Belichick grabs components that can work together. High IQ guys that are really smart and know how to find ways to understand not only their offense, but make the right routes and plays to get themselves open. So offensively, it feels like they added guys to go back to an old school scheme. And it seems like their offense is going to be pound the ball, dump, dump, dump. Which, if you want me to be honest, it's probably going to win them more games than it would be having a guy that's just a straight up burner and trying to go deep to a number 1 guy like that. Using Cam at his strength, which is getting him out there. I listened to Warren Sharp mention this. Cam going out there running early, he seems to build his confidence after he gets that first pop because he's a hitter. He likes to be hit. He's a man's man when it comes to football. That's what the Patriots feel like they're doing, especially on the offensive side. And then they're ramping up the defense to make sure that they're helping the offense as much as possible be successful. So keep an eye out on what Belichick is doing. I think he's done for the most part as far as the big signings because he didn't really go after any massive names, but he did buy early, which is very uncommon. That is the uncommon thing. He bought early, but I think that this is right on track of what something a Belichick would do if every year he had $65 million to spend.